This audiobook reveals the hidden creation law. It is the law buried beneath every prayer, every thought, every desire. Stay until the end, and the doors of your reality will no longer be locked. Introduction. You have arrived at the threshold of a mystery. A law older than kingdoms, deeper than oceans, more radiant than stars, has been waiting for you. This is not coincidence nor chance. Something within you has brought you here, the echo of a question you have long carried in silence. What is the power that shapes my life, and how do I wield it? Close your eyes, if you will, and imagine walking through a vast corridor lit by golden torches. Each flame bends not toward the wind, but toward you, as if it recognizes you. At the end of this corridor rests a great door, carved from crystal and veined with light. On its surface are symbols you cannot read, yet somehow you know their meaning. They speak of creation, of destiny, of a law hidden from the ordinary gaze. This is the hidden creation law, and tonight you will step through. The world has taught you that creation belongs to labor, to effort, to struggle, that you must wrestle with circumstances, chase after fortune, and plead with destiny. Yet the sages, mystics, and prophets whispered a different truth, that all visible things are shadows cast by the invisible, that the unseen world is not a dream, but the blueprint of matter. That thought, belief, and inner vision are the architects of all that comes to pass. The hidden creation law is this: what you hold in sustained imagination, clothed in feeling, becomes flesh. What you speak in the silence of your heart is echoed by the universe itself. Reality bends not to your toil, but to your assumption. This law is so subtle that most pass their entire lives without realizing they are using it every moment. You are creating, whether in ignorance or awareness. And the fruits of your days reveal the quality of your inner command. There is no tyrant outside of you, no gatekeeper barring the way. The only veil is your forgetfulness. The only prison is disbelief. And the key, shimmering, eternal, rests in your hand even now. The ancients called it faith. The mystics called it imagination. Today, you may call it consciousness. By whatever name, the truth remains. You are the hidden author of your life. As you journey through these words, let them not be mere sound, but fire. Allow them to awaken the sleeping God within you. For you are more than dust, more than circumstance, more than memory. You are the image maker, the world shaper, the secret dream breathing galaxies into being. And when you remember this, when you claim it fully, all of creation bends to your command. So take a breath. Feel the quiet thunder in your chest. You are not here by accident. You are here because it is time. Time to remember, time to awaken, time to walk through the door and reclaim the hidden creation law. Chapter 1. The beginning of all creation is not outside of you, but within. Imagine, if you will, standing in a desert at dawn. The sands are endless, the sky is painted with fire, and the horizon seems to stretch forever. Nothing yet has formed, no cities, no structures, no footsteps. And yet, in that emptiness lies the greatest power of all, the power to imagine, to choose, to bring forth. This is the silent birthplace of every empire, every poem, every song, every fortune ever woven into time. It begins in silence, in thought, in vision. And this is where the hidden creation law reveals its first truth. Creation is not reaction to what you see. It is the command of what you believe. You have been told again and again that the world is fixed, solid, and immovable, that you must bow to it, adapt to it, and squeeze yourself into its mold. Yet look closer, and you will see that the world has always been malleable, shaped by those who dared to see what was not yet visible. Before the light bulb glowed in the night, it flickered in the imagination of Edison. Before the great cathedrals rose toward heaven, they lived as sketches in the minds of architects. Before ships crossed oceans, they existed as visions in the hearts of sailors. Always the unseen precedes the seen. Always the invisible gives birth to the visible. This is the law. This is the rhythm. This is the very pulse of creation. But what is often forgotten is this. You, too, are bound by this law, not as a victim, but as a wielder. Every day, you hold before your inner eye images that will sculpt the clay of tomorrow. Every thought, when impressed with emotion, becomes a seed dropped into the soil of reality. Some seeds are planted with care, chosen with wisdom, nurtured with love. Others are sown in ignorance, watered by fear, and left to grow into thorny vines. Yet the soil makes no judgment. It accepts whatever is given to it. The question, then, is not whether you are creating. You are. The question is, what are you creating? Consider the parable of a man who lived in poverty, yet dreamed of wealth. Each night, he closed his eyes and walked in imagination through a grand house. He touched the polished wood of its stairway, ran his fingers along the velvet curtains, gazed upon the fire that warmed the hearth. Though the world mocked him, though his pocket was empty, he lived inwardly in abundance. Weeks turned to months, and one day, by a chain of events that seemed like coincidence, but were in truth the echoes of his inner vision, the dream hardened into fact. The house became his. The world said he was lucky. But luck is only a name given by those who cannot see the law. The hidden creation law does not ask for your toil, nor does it demand endless struggle. It requires only your faith, your ability to hold a vision with persistence until the world itself rearranges to mirror it. It is like holding a compass in the dark. At first, nothing seems to change. The night is still night. The silence is still silence. Yet, as you continue to walk, guided by that unseen pointer, you arrive exactly where you were meant to. Your vision is the compass. Your imagination is the map. And your feeling, the emotion that breathes life into the image, is the key that unlocks the gate. To live by this law is to stop bowing before appearances. It is to recognize that what you see is only the harvest of older seeds. If you do not like the fruit, change the seed. If you do not like the picture, change the film, for reality is the projection of the inner real. Your mind is the projector, your belief the light, your feeling the lens. And the screen upon which it all plays out is the world you call real. Once you understand this, you stop being a passive viewer and become the director of your own unfolding. Yet many will ask, how do I know this is true? How do I trust what cannot yet be seen? The answer is simple. Look at your life. Every success, every failure, every chance meeting, every repeated pattern, all of it is evidence of the inner images you have entertained, whether consciously or unconsciously. The friend who always expects rejection is rarely disappointed. The one who expects favor seems to stumble into opportunities. The student who imagines failure before the exam often finds their fear fulfilled. The athlete who rehearses victory inwardly before stepping onto the field often finds the body obeys the mind's command. Creation always begins unseen. Let me tell you the story of a young woman who longed for freedom. She worked in a small shop, her days consumed by routine, her nights filled with restless dreams. One evening she stumbled upon a simple teaching: live as though it were already so, and it will become so. At first she doubted. How could such a thing be true? But something within urged her to try. Each night she imagined herself walking along the beach of a distant country. She felt the sand beneath her feet, the salt on her lips, the wind in her hair. She did not know how it would happen nor when, but she lived it inwardly until it became as familiar as her daily routine. Months later, a friend she had not spoken to in years contacted her with an offer, a position overseas with pay far beyond what she earned. Within weeks, she stood on that very beach she had walked in imagination. She wept, not from surprise, but from recognition. For she knew now what she had only faintly believed before: the law is true. The inner becomes the outer, the dream becomes the fact, and the world rearranges itself to honor the vision held in silence. The hidden creation law, then, is not something distant or unreachable. It is with you now. It hums beneath your every thought, it stirs in your every assumption. And once you awaken to it, you can no longer claim helplessness. You may face obstacles, yes. You may walk through storms, yes. But beneath it all, you will know the deeper truth. The world is your mirror. It reflects not your effort, but your essence. Not your struggle, but your certainty. Not your wishful thinking, but your assumed reality. So I invite you here and now to try a sacred exercise. Tonight, before sleep, choose one desire. Not many, just one. Close your eyes and see it clearly. If it is wealth, imagine holding the keys to your new home. If it is love, imagine feeling the warmth of another's hand in yours. If it is health, imagine walking freely, breathing deeply, living vibrantly. Do not beg, do not plead. Simply assume. See it as if it were already so. Feel it as if it were already done. Fall asleep in that state, and let the subconscious mind carry it like a seed into the fertile soil of night. In time, you will awaken to the harvest. Remember, this is no game. It is no trick. It is the deepest law of reality. You are always creating. The only question is, are you creating with awareness or without it? Begin now. Begin with one vision, one assumption, one inner command, and let the world prove itself to you. Chapter 2. Creation begins in silence, but it is sustained in certainty. To know the hidden creation law is not enough. You must embody it, breathe it, live it, until it becomes the very rhythm of your existence. You cannot touch fire with your hand without feeling its heat. In the same way, you cannot touch imagination with conviction without feeling its result move through your world. Creation is not a momentary spark, it is a continuous current, and those who harness it are carried upon a river that bends even the mightiest mountains. Picture a sculptor standing before a block of marble. At first it seems nothing more than stone, lifeless and heavy. Yet in the mind of the sculptor there already lives a form, a figure, graceful and eternal. Each strike of the chisel is not discovery, but revelation. The statue was there all along, waiting to be uncovered. The world, too, is your marble, and the law is your chisel. Each thought you hold, each feeling you sustain, is a strike upon the stone, revealing the masterpiece within. But here lies the mystery. The sculptor does not question whether the statue exists. He knows. He trusts that beneath the stone lies the form he envisions. In the same way, you must trust that beneath appearances lies the reality you have claimed. If you doubt, if you waver, if you let your faith collapse, then you abandon the work halfway. You will see fragments, unfinished shapes, but not the full glory. The law demands persistence, not in effort, but in assumption, to hold the inner picture as if it were already true. This is the discipline, this is the art, this is the path to mastery. Once there was a man who longed for healing. His body was frail, his days shadowed by pain, his nights restless. Doctors told him there was little hope, and his friends pitied him. Yet one evening, as he lay in his bed, he remembered a teaching whispered by an elder. Do not fight the sickness. See yourself whole. At first, he resisted. How could he imagine wholeness while his body trembled? But slowly, he began. Each night, he pictured himself walking in the garden, strong and upright. He felt the sun on his skin, the earth beneath his feet, the joy of breathing freely. He lived inwardly in a body of light. Weeks passed. At first, nothing changed. Yet he persisted, not with desperation, but with certainty. He knew the law was not bound to time, and then gradually strength returned. Muscles once weak grew firm, breath once shallow became deep. His healing was not sudden like lightning, but steady like dawn. Until one day, the sickness was gone. His friends called it a miracle. But he knew it was the law. What he assumed inwardly had clothed itself in flesh. The hidden creation law is impartial. It serves all alike, whether in ignorance or awareness. If you imagine fear, it clothes itself in events that justify the fear. If you imagine abundance, the world rearranges to provide. The law does not judge. It does not say, this dream is too small, this vision too grand. It simply obeys. It is the servant of your inner command, the mirror of your deepest conviction. The only question is, what image do you hold long enough for it to become your world? There is a story of two merchants who walked the same road. The first feared loss. Each night he imagined thieves, accidents, failures. His waking days were filled with worry, and though he worked diligently, misfortune seemed to follow him. The second merchant imagined wealth. He saw caravans arriving, customers filling his stall, gold overflowing his coffers. Though he faced obstacles, doors opened for him, and opportunities came in ways that seemed impossible. One lived in the shadow of fear. The other lived in the light of abundance. The law served both faithfully. For the law is not concerned with what you want, it is concerned with what you assume. Here, then, is the sacred warning. Your imagination is not a playground, but a forge. Every thought clothed in feeling is a command to the universe. You cannot dwell in lack and expect plenty. You cannot nurse resentment and expect love. You cannot bow to despair and expect hope. What you dwell upon becomes the garment of your life. To live carelessly in thought is to sow storms. To live deliberately in thought is to summon paradise. But perhaps you ask, how do I sustain an image when the outer world mocks it? How do I claim wealth when my pocket is empty? How do I feel loved when I sit alone? The answer is faith. Not faith in circumstances, but faith in the unseen. Faith is the bridge between what is and what shall be. It is the courage to walk as though your desire were already fulfilled. It is the inner voice that whispers, though I do not see it, I know it is mine. And when that voice becomes louder than the noise of appearances, reality itself bends to it. Imagine a seed buried in the soil. If you were to dig it up each day to check its progress, it would never grow. But if you leave it, trusting the unseen process, it breaks open, sends roots deep, and rises toward the sun. So it is with the images you plant in your mind. Leave them buried, not in doubt, but in trust. Water them with persistence, warm them with emotion, and let the unseen law bring forth the harvest. A woman once told the story of her journey out of scarcity. She worked tirelessly, yet her wages seemed to vanish as quickly as they arrived. She lived in a cycle of lack, always fearing the next bill, the next expense. One evening, she decided to test the law. She imagined herself opening a drawer filled with money. She touched the notes, smelled the ink, felt the weight of abundance. She lived in that vision every night, not with longing, but with certainty. Within months, unexpected opportunities came: a promotion, a gift, a chance investment. Her outer world caught up with her inner command, and she said, "It was not the money I attracted, it was the law I learned to trust." And so, I ask you now, what inner picture will you hold? What vision will you claim as yours? For the law does not wait. It is working in you even now, shaping tomorrow from the substance of your present assumption. If you carry fear, tomorrow will echo it. If you carry love, tomorrow will bloom with it. If you carry abundance, tomorrow will overflow. The law is faithful, more faithful than time itself. Let us end with a sacred practice. Tonight, when the world grows quiet and you lay down to sleep, choose one scene that would prove your desire fulfilled. If you long for wealth, imagine counting it. If you long for love, imagine receiving it. If you long for freedom, imagine living it. Feel it until it is real to you. Fall asleep in that feeling, and let the law engrave it upon the tablet of your subconscious. Do this not once, but nightly, until it becomes your dwelling place. And then watch as the outer world bends in obedience. Remember this truth: you are not a beggar in this universe. You are its co-creator. The law is not above you, nor beneath you, but within you. To awaken to it is to awaken to your divine inheritance. Hold your vision, sustain your faith, and let the unseen world clothe itself in form. Chapter 3. The hidden creation law reveals itself most clearly when you realize that life is not responding to what you say, but to what you silently assume. Words spoken without belief are empty echoes, but thoughts felt as truth are decrees sealed in the chambers of reality. You may tell the world you are prosperous, but if you secretly carry the conviction of lack, your world will remain barren. You may declare that you are loved, yet if deep within you assume abandonment, life will mirror solitude. The law does not bow to appearances or proclamations. It obeys the vibration of certainty that radiates from within you. Imagine standing before a great mirror. You raise your hand, and the reflection responds. You smile, and it smiles. You frown, and it frowns. No matter how you plead, no matter how you demand, the reflection cannot change until you change yourself. The world is such a mirror. It reflects not your wishes, not your complaints, but your essence. The more you insist outwardly without shifting inwardly, the more the mirror repeats the same image. This is why struggle often feels endless, not because life is cruel, but because the image you carry has not yet shifted. There is a story of a young man who longed for success. Each day he said, "I will be great, I will be wealthy, I will be admired." But inside, he held the image of himself as unworthy. He feared failure, doubted his talent, and assumed that others were luckier than him. Years passed, and though he worked tirelessly, little changed. Then one evening, exhausted, he sat alone and asked himself, "What do I truly believe about myself?" The answer came quietly, "I believe I am small." In that moment, he saw the truth. It was not the world that denied him, it was his own assumption. So he began to change. Each night he imagined himself already successful, already confident, already admired. He spoke not as a beggar of fate, but as the author of his story. Slowly his outer life shifted, aligning with the new inner image. The law had never failed him. He had simply fed it with the wrong seed. The hidden creation law teaches that feeling is the root of creation. Thought alone, without feeling, is like a seed left on stone. It cannot take root. But when thought is fused with emotion, when the image is clothed in the fire of certainty, then it buries itself in the fertile soil of the subconscious and grows into fact. To live by the law is to ask not only, "What do I think?" but more importantly, "What do I feel to be true?" For the universe does not weigh your words, it vibrates with your assumption. Consider the farmer who plants a vineyard. He does not plant today and harvest tomorrow. He does not question the soil each morning or beg the earth to keep its promise. He trusts the invisible process, waters with care, and allows time to serve its role. In due season, the harvest arrives. Creation works the same way. Your vision is the seed, your faith the water, your persistence the sun. Doubt digs up the roots, impatience tramples the soil, fear poisons the ground. But faith allows the invisible to become visible. The law is steady, faithful, inevitable. When you align with it, the harvest is sure. There was once a woman who longed for companionship. Years had passed in loneliness, and though she prayed for love, she secretly assumed rejection. One day, she heard a teaching. Do not ask for love, but live as though you are already loved. At first, it felt like a lie, but she tried. Each evening, she set a place for two at her table. She spoke aloud as though someone listened. She walked with the feeling that a hand held hers, invisible but real. She did not beg. She did not wonder when. She simply lived inwardly in the state of love fulfilled. Months later, she met a man who reflected the love she had already assumed within herself. Their connection was not sudden chance, but the natural outworking of the law. She did not attract love. She created it by embodying it before it appeared. The greatest error most people make is waiting for the world to change before they change within. They say, "I will feel wealthy when I have money. I will feel loved when someone comes. I will feel confident when I succeed." But the law reverses this order. You must first feel the state, assume the reality, embody the vision inwardly. Then, and only then, will the outer conform. To wait is to delay. To assume is to command. The door opens not to the hesitant, but to the one who walks as though it were already open. Look to the lives of inventors, artists, leaders. They were not waiting for proof. They carried visions no one else could see. They walked in worlds invisible to the eyes of others until those worlds hardened into reality. This is why the law is called hidden, because it is seen only by those who dare to look within. The masses see the surface and call it final. The awakened see the invisible and call it the seed. You too must dare. Dare to see yourself beyond appearances. Dare to assume the identity of the one you wish to become. Do not wait for permission. Do not bow to doubt. Do not measure by circumstances. The law bends to certainty, not hesitation. Let me give you a practice. Tonight, choose a new self. Close your eyes and see yourself already transformed. If you long for wealth, do not imagine the struggle toward it. Imagine the ease of already having it. Feel the weight of the wallet, the comfort of the home, the freedom of choice. If you long for health, do not imagine the healing process. Imagine the joy of already being well. Run, breathe, laugh in imagination until it feels as real as waking life. If you long for love, do not imagine waiting for it. Imagine living in it now. Let the warmth, the intimacy, the certainty flood your being. Do not ask when or how. Simply assume it is already so. Fall asleep in that feeling and let the subconscious carve it into fact. This is the essence of the hidden creation law. You become what you assume, and the world has no choice but to reflect it. Creation is not future, it is now. The moment you shift within, reality begins its rearrangement. To the eyes, it may seem slow. To the awakened, it is instant. The law moves the unseen pieces, aligns the circumstances, stirs the hearts of others, and bends the fabric of time itself to fulfill the vision you sustain. So the question is not, will it work? The question is, will you persist? For the law cannot fail, but you can abandon it by giving more power to appearances than to your inner command. Persist, therefore. Hold fast to the vision, even when the mirror shows the old image. Trust that the reflection must change when you change yourself. Walk by faith, not by sight. And soon, sight itself will bow to your faith. Chapter 4. To understand the hidden creation law more deeply, you must grasp that time itself is an illusion that bends before the authority of your assumption. The world has taught you to wait for signs, to wait for results, to wait for tomorrow. Yet creation does not wait. Creation is now. Every assumption you accept in this very moment is shaping the lines of your future, just as surely as a sculptor's chisel defines the form of stone. The outer world lags only because it must obey the rhythm of manifestation, but the shift has already taken place within. The question is never if it will appear, but only when. And when depends entirely on how unwaveringly you sustain the state of being. Imagine a vast stage upon which your life unfolds. You are both the actor and the director, though most live only as actors, reciting lines written by fear, by memory, by society. Yet if you rise into your true position as director, you realize that every scene can be rewritten. The props can be changed, the characters rearranged, the setting transformed. The play has no choice but to follow the script you command. To live unaware of this is to act endlessly in a drama you did not consciously choose. To live aware is to step into authorship and claim the pen that writes the script of destiny. Consider the parable of a man who longed for freedom from debt. His life seemed bound by chains of bills, obligations, and endless work. Each month he fought harder, yet the chains grew heavier. One evening he learned of the law. He was told, "Do not fight the chains, assume the freedom." And so he tried. He closed his eyes each night and imagined opening a letter, not of debt, but of paid in full release. He felt the relief surge through him, the joy of freedom. He sustained that image until it became his nightly dwelling. And though at first nothing changed, soon opportunities arose. A promotion came, an unexpected inheritance, Doors once closed swung open. Within a year, the chains were gone. It was not chance. It was the mirror of his inner certainty. The hidden creation law bends time. What you accept inwardly as true compresses the path between desire and fulfillment. To those who look only with the eyes, it appears as coincidence, as sudden fortune. But you will know it as the inevitable working of the law. The outer is but the shadow of the inner. The moment you change within, the shadow must shift, though it may take days, weeks, or months to harden into full clarity. And so the practice is persistence, to hold an image not once, not twice, but continually, until it takes root. Many begin with excitement, imagining wealth, love, or health. But when the outer world mocks them with silence, they grow weary and abandon the vision. They return to doubt, and the law obeys. For the law will never betray your dominant state. The secret, then, is this: do not measure progress by appearances. Measure progress only by your inner persistence. If you dwell nightly in the end must arrive. There is a story of a young woman who dreamed of becoming a singer. Her family told her it was impossible. Her friends advised her to be realistic, and circumstances seemed to confirm their doubt. Yet each night she rehearsed not only with her voice, but with her imagination. She saw herself on stage, the lights upon her, the audience applauding. She felt the weight of the microphone, the thrill of expression, the joy of living her gift. She did not know how it would come, but she lived as though it had already arrived. Within years, chance meetings brought mentors, doors opened, and what was once only imagination became her life. The law had not failed. She had simply dared to persist. This persistence requires discipline, but not the discipline of struggle, the discipline of surrender. To surrender is to stop entertaining doubt. To surrender is to live fully in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. To surrender is to refuse to argue with appearances. Like a river flowing toward the sea, you must trust the current, even when the path winds unseen. Your only task is to remain in the state of the end, to feel its reality, to claim it as already yours. But there is a subtle danger. Many confuse wishing with assuming. A wish says, "I hope this will happen." An assumption says, "It is already so." A wish waits for proof. An assumption is proof. A wish trembles. An assumption stands firm. The law does not respond to hopes tinged with doubt, but to the certainty of assumption. This is why so many prayers seem unanswered, not because the divine is deaf, but because the prayer was never truly assumed as already answered. Look again to the mirror. If you wish the reflection would smile, but you continue to frown, nothing changes. But if you smile first, the reflection has no choice but to smile back. This is creation. You must become the thing within before it becomes the thing without. And once you grasp this, you understand that there is no need for begging, no need for despair, no need for waiting endlessly. You have the power to shift within now. And when you shift within, the outer must obey. So, let us practice. Tonight, choose one desire that feels impossible. Instead of longing for it, imagine yourself already beyond it. If it is wealth, see yourself not gaining money, but already living in abundance. If it is healing, see yourself not recovering, but already vibrant and whole. If it is love, see yourself not waiting, but already embraced. Do not try to force the how. Do not demand the when. Simply assume the end as if it were already now, and fall asleep in that feeling. The subconscious, which governs creation, does not distinguish between imagination and fact. It only obeys what you feel as real. And what you feel as real will soon harden into reality. Know this truth: the law has never failed, cannot fail, and will not fail. What fails is only our persistence, our faith, our ability to assume. But the moment you choose to live inwardly in the end, the outer begins its rearrangement. The world bends, people shift, time compresses, and events align. It is not magic, it is law. It is not wishful thinking. It is the foundation of creation. So I ask you now, will you dare to persist? Will you hold the vision when all appearances deny it? Will you walk by the unseen until the seen bows to you? For if you do, you will discover what the sages whispered, what the prophets proclaimed, what the mystics lived. You are the author of your world, and the law is your servant. Chapter 5. The most misunderstood aspect of the hidden creation law is identity. What you assume about yourself is the foundation of all that unfolds around you. Your world is not merely shaped by what you want, it is shaped by who you believe yourself to be. If you desire abundance but secretly believe yourself to be poor, life will continue to mirror poverty. If you long for love but carry the identity of one unworthy of affection, your outer world will echo rejection. If you seek freedom, yet inwardly call yourself bound, chains will remain. The law listens not to your passing desires, but to your sustained sense of self. Picture the earth beneath your feet. Upon it, seeds are scattered. Some seeds carry the promise of trees, some of flowers, some of weeds. But no matter what seed you plant, the soil gives it form. Identity is that soil. It accepts every seed you plant, whether of greatness or of limitation. If you persistently identify as weak, then weakness will grow. If you identify as powerful, then circumstances will bend to display your power. This is why the ancients declared, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." The heart, in this sense, is not the organ of flesh, but the core of assumption. There is the story of a tailor who lived in a small village. Each day he worked diligently, but inwardly he saw himself as insignificant. He thought of himself as merely a worker, unnoticed, destined for smallness. Though opportunities came his way, he dismissed them, believing they were meant for others. His life remained narrow because his identity was narrow. Then, one night, he had a dream. In the dream, he wore garments of kings, and the people bowed before him. When he awoke, something shifted. He began to assume a new identity, not as a mere tailor, but as a creator of beauty. He stitched his garments with vision, poured dignity into every fold, and carried himself with new confidence. Soon, his work attracted nobles, then royalty. His shop grew, his influence expanded, and the once forgotten tailor became renowned across the land. The difference was not in his needle or thread, but in his assumption of self. This is the key. The law does not create what you wish for. It creates what you are. If you identify as abundant, you will see abundance everywhere. If you identify as favored, doors will open. If you identify as blessed, blessings will multiply. The world does not argue with you. It simply reflects your conviction. Yet most people live in contradiction. They desire one thing but assume another. They say, "I want wealth," yet they continually identify as struggling. They say, "I want love," yet they continually assume loneliness. They say, "I want freedom," yet they continually live as though bound. And the law, impartial and unwavering, mirrors their identity rather than their passing wish. To truly harness creation, you must align desire with identity. You must become inwardly the one who already has what you seek. Consider the parable of a man trapped in a prison cell. Each day he walked in circles, lamenting his fate. But one evening he decided to change. Though still behind bars, he closed his eyes and imagined himself free. He walked through wide fields, breathed open air, and felt the joy of liberty. Day after day, he assumed freedom. His fellow prisoners mocked him, but he persisted. And then, through a series of events no one could have predicted, his release came. What others saw as chance, he knew as law. His freedom began not with the key in the lock, but with the shift of identity in his heart. Identity, then, is the secret doorway. You must walk through it before the world can follow. If you wish to be wealthy, embody the identity of wealth now. If you wish to be healthy, live inwardly in the identity of wellness now. If you wish to be loved, assume the identity of one already cherished now. Do not wait for the world to crown you. Crown yourself inwardly, and the world will echo. But how do you shift identity when appearances shout the opposite? The answer lies in repetition, imagination, and feeling. Identity is nothing more than an assumption repeated until it feels natural. You may not yet feel wealthy, but if you assume wealth nightly, imagine its scenes vividly, and let its feelings saturate your being, the identity begins to settle. At first, it may feel false, but persist, and the false becomes familiar. Persist further, and the familiar becomes fact. There was once a woman who struggled with illness. She identified as fragile, weak, and sickly. Everywhere she went, people treated her as such, and her body obeyed her identity. One day, she heard a teaching. You are not what the world calls you. You are what you assume. She decided to test it. Each night, she imagined herself running through fields, laughing with strength. Each morning, though her body still trembled, she affirmed, I am strong, I am vibrant, I am whole. At first, it felt like pretending, but as weeks passed, her identity began to shift. She no longer saw herself as fragile, but as strong. Her body, in time, conformed. Doctors called it recovery. She called it remembrance of her true identity. This is the beauty of the law. It does not ask you to beg for change, only to assume change. It does not ask you to wait for permission, only to identify yourself as already transformed. The law cannot resist identity. Whatever you claim yourself to be, the world must reflect. So I ask you, who are you choosing to be right now? Not in words, but in feeling? Do you see yourself as small or as vast, as bound or as free, as lacking or as abundant? Look around you, for your world reveals the answer. If you do not like the reflection, change the identity. And once you do, the reflection must follow. Let us close with a sacred practice. Tonight, choose one identity you long to embody. If you desire wealth, assume the identity of one already wealthy. Imagine how you would walk, how you would speak, how you would live. If you desire love, assume the identity of one already cherished. Feel the warmth of belonging. If you desire health, assume the identity of one already whole. See yourself running, laughing, thriving. Let this identity be your dwelling place. Repeat it nightly until it feels natural, and soon the law will harden it into fact. For the law does not resist, it does not hesitate, it simply obeys. When you say within, "I am," the universe answers, "So be it." And the world bends to mirror who you have assumed yourself to be. Chapter 6. The hidden creation law moves with subtlety, yet its fingerprints are everywhere for those who dare to see. What you call fate, what you call coincidence, what you call luck, all of it is the choreography of unseen assumptions taking form. Every conversation, every encounter, every door that opens or closes is part of a tapestry woven by the threads you have spun within. And when you begin to trace these threads back to their origin, you will see that every strand begins in imagination, clothed in feeling, sustained in belief. The outer world is not random, it is the mirror of your inner command. Imagine for a moment that life is a great orchestra. Each instrument represents an aspect of your world: finances, health, relationships, purpose. To the unawakened, the sound seems chaotic, a storm of notes without order. But once you step into awareness of the law, you realize that you are the conductor. Your assumptions are the baton that directs the music. When you carry fear, the orchestra responds with discord. When you carry certainty, the orchestra plays harmony. The music you hear is not imposed upon you by chance. It flows from the rhythm of your inner state. There was once a scholar who spent years studying sacred texts, seeking the secret of creation. He memorized verses, debated doctrines, and traveled to distant lands. Yet, despite his knowledge, his life remained filled with struggle. One night, weary and disheartened, he sat alone and whispered, "What am I missing?" In that silence, a realization came. It was not knowledge he lacked, but assumption. He had studied truth, but never embodied it. He had read of abundance, but lived in lack, spoken of faith, but walked in doubt. That night, he shifted. He began to assume the end, not as an idea, but as his dwelling. He lived each day as if his desires were already fulfilled. In time, his outer life transformed. The scriptures had always told the truth. He had simply failed to live them as identity. The law is not hidden because it is complex, but because it is simple. So simple, in fact, that the intellect often dismisses it. The mind says, surely creation requires effort, struggle, sacrifice. But creation requires only this: to assume the state of the wish fulfilled and to persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. The seed does not strain to become a tree, it simply unfolds what it already contains. In the same way, you do not need to force your desire into existence. You need only to embody it inwardly and allow the law to bring forth what has already been planted. Think of the caterpillar crawling upon a branch. To the eye, it is small, fragile, bound to the earth. Yet within it lies a hidden blueprint of wings. No one needs to teach it to fly. The potential was always there. When the time comes, the form shifts and the butterfly emerges. The caterpillar did not earn its wings. It simply fulfilled what was already assumed in its nature. So it is with you. The state you assume inwardly becomes the wings you wear outwardly. But here lies the challenge. Most people assume the state they do not want. They walk in lack, constantly rehearsing poverty in their imagination. They dwell in sickness, continually picturing weakness. They bow to rejection, replaying memories of abandonment. And because they sustain these inner images, the law faithfully brings them forth again and again. To escape this cycle, you must dare to assume differently. You must dare to feel abundance while the wallet is empty, health while the body trembles, love while the world seems silent. For it is not appearances that determine the law, it is assumption that determines appearances. There was once a farmer who suffered years of barren harvests. Each season he expected failure, and each season the earth echoed his expectation. One day an elder approached him and said, "You see the soil as cursed, and so it curses you. See it as fertile, and it will bless you." The farmer laughed at first, but then decided to test the words. He began to imagine his fields bursting with grain, his barns overflowing. Each morning he walked his land as if it were already abundant. To his surprise, the next season brought an extraordinary harvest. He wept, not from disbelief, but from recognition. The land had not changed, his assumption had. The law responds most quickly when you combine imagination with feeling. Thought alone is fragile, like smoke in the wind. But when thought is clothed in emotion, it becomes fire, burning its pattern into the subconscious. This is why you must not only see the vision, but feel it as real. If you imagine wealth, feel the security and freedom it brings. If you imagine love, feel the warmth and joy. If you imagine health, feel the strength flowing through you. The subconscious mind, which governs creation, cannot distinguish between a vividly felt imagination and an external event. It only knows what you have accepted as real. Yet you may ask, what of obstacles? What of delays? What of the resistance that rises when I try to change? Know this: resistance is not a sign of failure, but of transition. When a seed pushes against the soil, the darkness resists, yet the sprout continues upward. When the caterpillar shifts, the cocoon tightens, yet the butterfly emerges. Resistance is not the law denying you, it is the old state dissolving. The more you persist, the more the new identity takes root, until the old can no longer hold. The law does not ask for perfection, only persistence. Even if doubt whispers, even if appearances mock you, return again and again to the state of the end. Fall asleep in it, wake in it. Carry it as lightly as breath, yet as steadily as heartbeat. In time, the outer world, which once seemed immovable, will rearrange itself to echo your inner command. So, let us practice. Tonight, before sleep, choose a scene that proves your desire fulfilled. Keep it simple. If you desire wealth, imagine holding a bank statement, showing abundance. If you desire health, imagine a loved one saying, "You look so vibrant." If you desire love, imagine hearing, "I'm so glad we're together." Feel the joy of that moment as if it were happening now. Repeat it nightly, not with strain, but with trust. The scene will sink into the subconscious, and the law will do the rest. Know this truth: you are not waiting for your desire to come to you. It is already within you, waiting for you to assume it. The moment you do, the outer world begins its dance to match your inner song. The law is precise, unwavering, inevitable. When you shift, the world must shift. When you assume, creation must obey. Chapter 7. Creation is not something that begins when you decide to try. It is already happening moment by moment in the silence of your assumptions. You may think you are waiting for the right opportunity, the right relationship, the right chance, but the truth is that the universe has been waiting on you, waiting for you to shift inwardly, to claim with certainty the state you wish to live in. The law is not slow, it is immediate. The moment you embody the end in consciousness, the machinery of reality begins its rearrangement. What appears to be delay is only the unfolding of invisible pieces aligning into form. But the shift itself happens now, not tomorrow, not someday. Now. Imagine you are holding a lantern in the night. The flame within is small, but as you walk forward, the path before you illuminates step by step. You cannot see the entire road, yet each step reveals the next. Creation works in the same way. You may not know every detail of how your desire will unfold, but once you assume it is already yours, the flame of that assumption lights the way. Coincidences appear, conversations arise, meetings occur. To the unawakened, it all looks like chance. But you will know it is the law, faithfully reflecting your inner command. There is a story of a man who dreamed of becoming a writer. For years he carried the desire but lived in the assumption that he was not good enough, not talented enough, not chosen. His notebooks filled with unfinished words, his heart with unfinished hope. Then one day he heard a truth that pierced him. You are not waiting for permission. You are waiting for assumption. That night he decided to live as a writer. He closed his eyes and saw his name upon the cover of a book, felt the joy of holding it in his hands, heard the voices of readers speaking of how his words touched their lives. He lived nightly in that vision until it became natural. Soon, opportunities arose. A chance meeting with a publisher, encouragement from unexpected places, doors opening where before they were sealed. Within years, his dream hardened into reality. But in truth, it began the moment he assumed the identity of a writer. The law works through identity, because identity is the seed of every creation. If you walk through the world identifying as unworthy, you will meet reflections that confirm it. If you walk identifying as chosen, you will encounter favor in unexpected places. The world does not decide your role. You do. And once chosen, the law aligns the play of life to honor it. But many resist this simplicity. They want rituals, formulas, endless steps. They want the outer to change before they change the inner. Yet the law does not bend this way. You cannot demand fruit without planting the seed. You cannot demand reflection without first changing expression. And so, the practice is simple but profound. Assume the end as though it were already real. Live inwardly in the state of fulfillment. Persist until it becomes as natural as breathing, and then watch as the outer bows to the inner. There was once a merchant whose ship sank at sea, leaving him with nothing but despair. He told himself, "I am ruined. I am cursed." His assumption became his identity, and soon his days filled with further loss. Another merchant, facing the same tragedy, said within himself, "This is not the end, but the beginning. I am still prosperous. I am still favored." Though his outer eyes saw ruin, his inner eyes saw abundance, and because he assumed prosperity, opportunities found him, and he rebuilt greater than before. Both faced the same event, both carried different assumptions, and the law served each faithfully. This is why the law is impartial. It is not a judge rewarding some and punishing others. It is a mirror reflecting without bias the state you embody. You cannot cheat it, and you cannot escape it. You can only learn to use it wisely. If you live in fear, it will bring fear's echo. If you live in faith, it will bring faith's harvest. The soil accepts every seed, regardless of whether it is wheat or weed. The choice of seed belongs to you. But how, you may ask, do I persist in the end when the world insists otherwise? How do I feel abundant when my pocket is empty, loved when I sit alone, free when I see chains? The answer is imagination, clothed in feeling. Imagination is not escape but creation. When you imagine vividly, with emotion, you are planting the seed. The outer world may deny it for a season, but the inner seed will grow until the outer must bow. The discipline, then, is not to look at appearances for confirmation, but to return again and again to the inner vision until it becomes your natural state. Think of a tree growing in silence. Beneath the soil, roots spread, unseen by the eye. Days pass with no sign, yet underground life is stirring. Then, in time, the sprout emerges. So it is with assumption. At first you may see no change, but beneath the surface reality is rearranging. Each day you persist, the roots deepen, and soon the new life pierces the soil of appearances and stands visible before you. There was once a woman who desired love, but had known only loneliness. Each night she wept, begging the universe for companionship. Yet her assumption was clear. She believed herself unloved. And so the law reflected it. One evening, she decided to shift. She stopped begging and began assuming. She imagined herself embraced, cherished, seen. She lived in that state until it became her truth. And soon the outer followed. A man entered her life, reflecting the love she had already assumed within. She did not attract love. She created it by embodying it before it appeared. This is the hidden creation law. You are always creating, whether you know it or not. The only question is, are you creating consciously or unconsciously? Are you embodying what you desire or what you fear? The law will obey either. Awareness gives you the power to choose. Let us end with a sacred practice. Tonight, choose a new identity. If you long for wealth, imagine not the struggle for it, but the ease of already having it. Walk in your imagination through your new home. Hear the sound of abundance surrounding you. Feel the relief of freedom. If you long for health, see yourself already vibrant, running, laughing, filled with strength. If you long for love, imagine the joy of already being held, of already belonging. Feel it until it is real within you. Then sleep in that state. The subconscious will accept it as fact, and the law will bring it forth. Do this not once, but continually, until the assumption becomes your natural dwelling. For the law cannot resist identity. Whatever you embody, the world must reflect. Chapter 8. To live by the hidden creation law is to live as though you are already standing at the summit while your feet still rest upon the valley floor. It is to walk in the vibration of fulfillment while the senses may whisper otherwise. This is the paradox of creation. The world says, see it and then believe it. But the law commands, believe it and then you shall see it. Until this reversal is understood, most remain trapped in cycles of longing, forever waiting for proof before daring to assume. Yet proof is the echo, not the cause. Faith, assumption, imagination, clothed in feeling. These are the roots from which proof springs. Think of the actor upon a stage. He wears the costume, speaks the lines, and for a time embodies a role that is not his. In waking life, the audience believes him because he believes himself in that moment. The actor does not wait for proof that he is a king. He assumes the role, and the proof arrives in the eyes of those watching. You too are an actor upon the grand stage of life, though unlike the theater, the role you assume inwardly will eventually harden into fact. If you act daily in the inner theater of your mind as though abundance, love, and health are already yours, then life itself will adjust the scenery, the characters, and the script to confirm your assumption. There was once a teacher who told his student, "Do not look to the fields for harvest unless you have already sown the seed within." The student protested, "But I see nothing yet." The teacher replied, "That is why you must persist in seeing inwardly until the outer world has no choice but to echo it." The student took the words to heart. Each night he envisioned himself as prosperous, though his days were filled with scarcity. Weeks passed, then months, until opportunities arose from directions he could never have predicted. His harvest came not because he waited idly, but because he sowed inwardly with persistence. The law requires one thing above all: inner fidelity. To remain loyal to your assumption, even when outer appearances mock you, is the true test. For appearances are but shadows of older states. What you see today is yesterday's assumption hardened into form. If you do not like what you see, do not despair. Simply shift the seed now, and tomorrow will bring its reflection. Do not curse the shadow. Change the light that casts it. There was a woman who longed for healing. For years, she tried every remedy, yet her body remained frail. She wept, believing the law had abandoned her. But one evening, she heard a voice within, "Do not beg for health, assume it." From that night onward, she lived inwardly as whole. She saw herself walking freely, laughing deeply, breathing with ease. She rehearsed this nightly until it became her truth, though her body still trembled. Then, slowly, her body began to conform. Strength returned. Joy filled her. What the world called recovery, she knew as the law obeying her assumption. The law does not ask you to fight appearances. To fight is to give them power. To struggle against lack is to feed lack. To resist sickness is to strengthen its hold. Instead, the law asks you to withdraw your attention from the unwanted and place it fully on the assumed end. When you turn away from the shadow and look toward the light, the shadow dissolves on its own. This is the art of effortless victory, to win not by battle, but by assumption. Think of a dream you once had that felt so real you woke with your heart racing. In that dream, your body reacted, your emotions surged, though no physical event occurred. The subconscious does not distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you physically experience. It accepts both as real. This is why imagination, clothed in feeling, is the gateway of creation. When you live inwardly in the dream of fulfillment, the subconscious receives it as fact, and the law begins its work to mirror it outwardly. There was a young man who desired love. For years he sought approval, only to face rejection. One day, weary of striving, he decided to test the law. Each night he imagined himself embraced, cherished, spoken to with tenderness. He lived in that state until it felt natural. Soon after, he met a woman who reflected everything he had assumed inwardly. Their connection was not coincidence, but the inevitable outworking of his assumption. He did not chase love, he became love, and the law mirrored it. The hidden creation law is always faithful. It does not waver, it does not pause, it does not hesitate. The only shifting variable is you. When you persist in assumption, the law must obey. When you waver, the law still obeys, reflecting your uncertainty. To live as a master is to remain unmoved inwardly, no matter what outer appearances suggest. The storm may rage, but you remain still, anchored in the state of fulfillment. And soon, the storm must bow. So the practice becomes simple. Live inwardly, in the end, until it feels more real than the beginning. Let the vision become your dwelling place. If doubt whispers, return to the vision. If appearances mock, return to the vision. If time delays, return to the vision. The one who persists is never denied. Tonight, I invite you into a sacred exercise. Choose a desire that feels distant. Do not reach for it with longing. Embody it with certainty. Close your eyes and imagine a scene that proves it is fulfilled. If you long for wealth, imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. If you long for health, imagine someone remarking, "You look so vibrant." If you long for love, imagine the warmth of companionship already yours. Keep the scene simple, but let it carry the emotion of fulfillment. Replay it nightly until it becomes your truth. Soon, life itself will conspire to echo it. Remember this: you are never waiting for creation. You are only waiting for yourself to assume it fully. The universe is not withholding, it is responding. The door is not locked, it waits for you to walk through. The law is not hidden to punish you, but to invite you into mastery. When you awaken to it, you cease being a victim of chance and become a conscious creator of destiny. Chapter 9. The hidden creation law whispers one of its greatest truths in silence. Assumption is greater than effort. For centuries, humanity has been trained to believe that only through toil, struggle, and ceaseless labor can one shape their destiny. The world applauds sweat and sacrifice, but it does not understand the unseen law that moves with more power than 1,000 hands at work. Creation bows not to exhaustion, but to imagination clothed in certainty. To assume the end with unwavering faith is to wield a force that bends circumstances with invisible hands. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. A man, unaware of the current, takes up buckets and tries to carry water upon his shoulders. He sweats, he stumbles, he spills most of what he gathers. Another man, awakened to the current, simply places his vessel into the flow and lets the river carry it. Both seek water, but one struggles while the other rests in alignment with the natural law. So it is with creation. When you fight appearances, you labor endlessly. When you assume the end, you allow the law to carry you. There is a story of a businessman who spent years striving to climb the ladder of success. He worked tirelessly, slept little, and sacrificed much. Yet his gains slipped through his hands like sand. One day, exhausted, he heard a quiet teaching. Stop striving, assume. At first, he resisted. Surely nothing could replace hard work. But in his weariness, he decided to try. Each night, he envisioned himself already successful, seated at the head of the table, signing contracts, living in ease. He felt the reality of it until it became natural. Within months, opportunities arose that no amount of struggle could have produced. He was lifted by unseen currents. He did not stop working altogether, but his work flowed from assumption, not desperation. The difference was everything. The law is impartial. It does not reward effort for effort's sake. It rewards assumption sustained until it hardens into fact. To toil without assumption is to row against the current. To assume without toil is to let the current carry you. True mastery is found when work becomes the natural expression of your inner assumption, not the desperate attempt to prove it. Consider the parable of the orchard. Two farmers plant seeds. The first waters his soil with confidence, knowing the harvest is inevitable. He rests, tends, and trusts. The second waters his soil with fear, doubting the seed's strength, digging it up each day to check for growth. The first farmer reaps abundance, the second harvests failure. Both planted, both worked. But one assumed, while the other doubted. The soil obeyed the faith of one and the fear of the other. The law did not fail either. It mirrored each faithfully. This is the power of assumption. It directs the energy of life without strain. When you hold an inner state as already true, people, events, and circumstances shift to accommodate it. What the world calls miracles are nothing more than assumptions clothed in form. To those who understand the law, miracles are natural. There was once a woman who longed for companionship. She had tried everything: social gatherings, dating, advice from friends. Yet love eluded her. Finally, she surrendered her striving. She stopped searching and began assuming. Each night, she imagined herself embraced, cherished, spoken to with affection. She felt the joy of belonging until it became her dwelling. Soon, a man appeared in her life, reflecting her inner state. She had not found him through effort, but had created him through assumption. The law is not bound by logic. It is not limited by circumstance. It is not chained to time. When you assume fully, the how dissolves into irrelevance. The mind may scream for details, but the law works in silence, aligning the invisible threads of reality. Your only task is to dwell in the end until it becomes natural. The rest unfolds without your interference. Yet many sabotage themselves by oscillating between states. One night, they assume abundance. The next day, they bow to appearances of lack. One week, they embody love. The next, they succumb to loneliness. The law obeys both, and so their lives reflect contradiction. To persist in assumption is to remain unwavering, even when appearances deny it. To say within, though I see lack, I am wealthy. Though I feel pain, I am whole. Though I walk alone, I am loved. This persistence bends time itself until the outer must obey. There is the story of a king who tested the law upon his people. He declared, "You are prosperous," though they lived in famine. He commanded them to act as though abundance were already theirs. At first they laughed at him, mocking the delusion, but those who obeyed began to feel the state of plenty. They carried themselves with dignity, shared what little they had as though it were much, and lived as if the famine had passed. Soon the famine did end, and opportunities flowed into the kingdom. Those who had assumed abundance were prepared to receive it, while those who mocked remained empty. The king knew what the world did not. The law bends to assumption, not to appearances. The hidden creation law asks you to move beyond effort into embodiment. It does not reject action, but it demands that action flows from identity, not desperation. Work done in fear multiplies fear. Work done in faith multiplies abundance. To assume first is to lay the foundation. To act from that assumption is to build upon it with ease. This is the true balance: inner creation followed by outer expression. So let us practice. Tonight, take one desire you have struggled for in vain. Perhaps it is wealth, perhaps health, perhaps love. Lay down the struggle. Stop rehearsing the lack. Stop bowing to appearances. Instead, assume it is already so. Close your eyes and live in the end. If it is wealth, feel the relief of freedom. If it is health, feel the vitality of strength. If it is love, feel the warmth of belonging. Dwell in that state until it becomes natural. Let action flow from this identity, not from fear. You will find that what once seemed impossible begins to unfold with grace. For the law is not cruel, nor does it delay. It is precise, unwavering, immediate. The moment you shift inwardly, creation begins. The outer may take time to align, but the seed has already sprouted. Persist in assumption, and soon the harvest will appear. Chapter 10. The hidden creation law reveals that imagination is not idle fantasy, but the workshop of reality. What you see inwardly with conviction becomes the blueprint the universe must build upon. Every invention, every discovery, every work of art was first born in this sacred workshop. The wheel spun first in a dream, the cathedral stood first in vision, the song was heard first in silence. And your life, too, is nothing more than the unfolding of the images you have entertained within. The unawakened dismiss imagination as child's play, as fanciful escape. They cling to what they call facts and reality, not realizing that what they call reality is merely yesterday's imagination hardened into stone. Look around you. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the words you are hearing, all of it once lived only in imagination. What was once unseen became seen. What was once formless became form. This is the eternal rhythm. The inner precedes the outer, always and without exception. There was once an architect who stood before an empty field. The villagers mocked him when he spoke of building a cathedral there. They saw only grass, dirt, and emptiness. But within, he already walked its halls, heard the echo of choirs, saw the light streaming through stained glass. He persisted in that inner vision until the outer world had no choice but to obey. Years later, the cathedral stood, and the villagers bowed in awe. They called it miraculous, but the architect knew it was law. This is the same law that governs your life. If you persist in imagining lack, then lack becomes your cathedral. If you persist in imagining abundance, then abundance rises in stone and light. The subconscious accepts every image impressed upon it, whether of fear or faith, whether of despair or delight. The universe does not resist, it reflects. The only question is, what are you showing it? The danger lies in unconscious imagination. Most people live their days rehearsing failure, picturing worst-case scenarios, replaying scenes of rejection. They dwell on what they fear, not realizing that the law is listening, and so the very things they dread arrive, not as punishment, but as creation obeyed. To awaken is to reclaim imagination as your sacred tool. No longer is it idle daydreaming. It is deliberate creation. Consider the parable of a young artist who longed to paint masterpieces. But each time he lifted his brush, he froze, doubting his talent. One evening he decided to imagine differently. He closed his eyes and saw his paintings hanging in grand galleries. He imagined crowds admiring his work, patrons purchasing his art. He lived in that vision nightly until it became real to him. Soon, opportunities arose, commissions, exhibitions, recognition. His outer success was born in the inner gallery he had visited faithfully. He did not create paintings first. He created the vision of them, and the paintings followed. The hidden creation law demands you take responsibility for your inner workshop. You cannot afford to let fear run wild in imagination, for the law will obey. You cannot indulge in resentment, in self-pity, in constant rehearsal of lack, for the law will mirror it. You must guard the gates of imagination as you would guard the gates of a sacred temple. Allow only that which you wish to see unfold. Live daily in the end of your desire fulfilled, and the world will sculpt itself to reflect your inner dwelling. There was once a man imprisoned unjustly. He could have resigned himself to despair, imagining only chains and darkness. But each night he chose otherwise. He imagined walking freely in the sun, embracing his family, living in peace. He held this vision until it became more real to him than the bars. Years later, through events no one could have predicted, his release came. He stepped into the very scene he had rehearsed in imagination. He said, "I was free before I was free." Such is the power of the inner workshop. Imagination, when fused with feeling, is creation's language. Thought alone drifts, but thought clothed in emotion takes root. This is why you must not only see your desire, but feel it as though it were already true. If you long for wealth, do not merely imagine numbers in a bank account. Feel the freedom, the relief, the joy of abundance. If you long for health, do not merely picture yourself strong. Feel the vitality coursing through your veins. If you long for love, do not merely see another by your side. Feel the warmth, the safety, the joy of belonging. The subconscious does not respond to words but to feeling. And what you feel inwardly, you will soon live outwardly. The world may mock this, calling it fantasy. Yet look closely, and you will see that everyone lives this way unconsciously. The fearful man imagines disaster, and disaster comes. The hopeful woman imagines success, and success finds her. The child imagines adventure, and life brings it. The only difference between the awakened and the unawakened is that the awakened use imagination deliberately, while the unawakened use it carelessly. The law does not discriminate. It mirrors both alike. So let us practice. Tonight, before you close your eyes, choose a single scene that would prove your desire fulfilled. Keep it short, simple, and saturated with emotion. If you desire wealth, imagine signing a document marked "Paid in Full." If you desire health, imagine someone saying, "You look so alive." If you desire love, imagine hearing, "I'm so glad you're here." Replay this scene gently until it takes on the tone of reality. Fall asleep in it, and the subconscious will accept it as fact. Do this nightly, and soon the scene will move from imagination into manifestation. Do not underestimate the simplicity of this practice. Within it lies the secret of creation. The world has taught you that only through complexity and struggle can life change. But the truth is this: creation begins and ends in imagination. What you dare to assume inwardly, you will live outwardly. No force, no power, no circumstance can resist the law once it has been accepted by the subconscious. Remember this truth: imagination is not make-believe. It is the blueprint of being. It is the seed of creation. It is the hidden scripture written in silence, waiting for you to claim it. When you do, the universe has no choice but to obey. Chapter 11. To live by the hidden creation law is to understand that reality is not fixed but fluid, bending to the silent rhythm of your inner state. What you call solid, stone, metal circumstance is but frozen thought, hardened imagination, assumption clothed in form. You may walk through a city and believe the buildings to be permanent, the systems immovable, the structures eternal. Yet each of them began as an idea, fragile and invisible, held first in the quiet mind of someone who dared to assume. What you call permanence is only imagination that has persisted long enough to crystallize. And if imagination shaped it, imagination can reshape it. The unawakened move through life as though chained to circumstance. They see the evidence of lack and declare themselves poor. They feel the ache of loneliness and declare themselves unloved. They face illness and declare themselves broken. But the awakened understand that evidence is only shadow, and shadow cannot resist light. If you shine a new inner assumption brightly enough, the shadow of appearances must shift. To persist in the old state is to remain bound. To persist in the new is to be free. There was once a man who inherited a farm ruined by drought. The soil cracked, the crops failed, the animals weakened. Neighbors pitied him, for they saw only barrenness. But the man chose a different vision. Each day he walked the fields and imagined golden stalks waving in the wind. He pictured barns overflowing, the laughter of workers, the abundance of harvest. He lived in this vision until it became natural. In time, the rains returned, opportunities arose, and his farm flourished beyond the memory of drought. To his neighbors, it seemed a stroke of fortune. But the man knew it was the law, answering his assumption. This is the quiet power of persistence. The law is not activated by fleeting wishes or momentary bursts of hope. It responds to what you dwell upon, to the state you return to again and again until it becomes your natural home. If you dwell nightly in the end of your desire fulfilled, the law will harden it into fact. But if you drift between states, wavering between faith and doubt, the law will mirror your contradiction, for it is impartial, faithful, unchanging. It reflects whatever you embody most deeply. Many ask, but how do I know my assumption is working? The answer is simple. You will feel a shift within. You will sense a quiet certainty, a peace that does not depend on outer evidence. It may come as subtle joy, as relief, as a knowing that does not need proof. This is the sign that the seed has been planted. Once planted, trust the soil. Do not dig it up with worry. Do not trample it with fear. Let it rest. Let it grow. Let the unseen process unfold. The harvest is inevitable. Consider the caterpillar within its cocoon. From the outside, it appears still, lifeless, without progress. But within, transformation is unfolding, unseen yet unstoppable. So it is with your assumption. The outer may appear unchanged, but within, the law is rearranging the fibers of reality. And when the time is ripe, the transformation bursts forth, undeniable. There was once a woman who longed for freedom from endless debt. Each month, the numbers haunted her, the bills piled high, and despair grew heavy. One night, weary of fear, she tried something different. She imagined herself holding a letter marked "Paid in Full." She felt the relief flood her chest, the lightness of freedom. Each night, she rehearsed this scene until it became more real to her than the weight of debt. Slowly, doors opened, opportunities for income, unexpected gifts, forgiveness of balances. Within 2 years, the debts were gone. She told her story with tears, saying, "The letter came because I already lived in it." The law teaches that the future is not ahead of you. It is within you. Each assumption you hold is a branch of possibility. By embodying it, you call it forth into being. The unawakened drift between branches, unconsciously, pulled by fear and habit. The awakened choose deliberately, planting their feet in the branch they desire until it solidifies as fact. This is why sages across ages have declared, "According to your faith, it is done unto you." Faith is not begging, it is assumption. It is the quiet acceptance that what you see inwardly is more real than what you see outwardly, because the outer must eventually conform to the inner. But many confuse imagination with fantasy. They say, "I can imagine wealth, but it feels like pretending. The difference is this: fantasy is wishful escape tinged with doubt. Assumption is embodiment carried with conviction. When you fantasize, you secretly believe it is not yours. When you assume, you live as though it already island. The law does not respond to idle wishes, but it bows to the weight of conviction. There was once a scholar who debated endlessly about truth. He argued doctrines, compared philosophies, sought proof in scriptures and sciences. Yet his life remained unchanged. One day, an old sage told him, "You seek truth with your mind, but you must assume it with your heart. Stop arguing, begin embodying." That night, the scholar closed his eyes and assumed wealth, health, and peace as already his. He felt the joy of it, the reality of it. In time, his life transformed. He became not only a scholar of words, but a master of creation. So the practice is simple. Choose the end, embody it, persist until it feels natural. Do not worry about how it will come, for the how belongs to the law. Your only task is the inner act of assumption. When you master this, life itself becomes your servant. Let us end with a sacred practice. Tonight, before you sleep, choose one desire that has long seemed impossible. Create a scene that would imply its fulfillment. If it is wealth, imagine the relief of paying every bill with ease. If it is health, imagine yourself running freely, laughing in joy. If it is love, imagine the warmth of someone's embrace. Keep it short, vivid, and filled with emotion. Replay it until it becomes real within. Fall asleep in that state and let the subconscious accept it. Repeat this nightly and watch as the law begins its silent rearrangement. Remember this: the law does not delay. The seed begins to grow the moment it is planted. Do not measure by the surface of the soil. Trust the roots beneath. Persist, and in time, the harvest will break forth. For creation is not the work of the outer, but the fruit of the inner. And once you master assumption, you will know beyond doubt that the world is your mirror and imagination is the brush that paints it. Chapter 12. The hidden creation law is revealed most fully when you understand that consciousness is not passive, but causative. You are not drifting in a universe dictated by chance. You are standing at the very center of creation, commanding it with every assumption you sustain. Whether you realize it or not, your inner dialogue is shaping the outer dialogue of life. What you speak silently within yourself becomes the script that the world reads and performs. This is why the wise have always warned, guard your thoughts, for they are prayers. Guard your assumptions, for they are decrees. Imagine a great theater, where invisible scribes record every word you whisper within. They do not judge or question. They do not ask whether it is true or false, wise or foolish. They simply take your inner dialogue as command and inscribe it into the unfolding script of your reality. If you tell yourself daily, "I am weak, I am unlucky, I am forgotten," the scribes faithfully write those lines into your life's play. If you tell yourself, "I am strong, I am chosen, I am favored," the scribes record that instead, and the stage is set accordingly. The law does not argue, it only mirrors. There was once a man who longed for success, but constantly spoke to himself in defeat. He told himself he was unworthy, that opportunities never came his way, that others were destined for greatness, but not him. The law obeyed, and his life reflected precisely what he assumed. One day, weary of failure, he decided to change his inner conversation. He began to tell himself daily, I am successful. Doors open for me. I am worthy of abundance. At first, it felt like a lie, but he persisted. Slowly, his tone shifted from doubt to certainty. And as his inner dialogue changed, his outer world followed. Soon, new opportunities arose, and success, once elusive, became his natural state. He realized then that he had always been creating, only unconsciously. The great danger is that most people live in unconscious self-talk. They assume the worst, rehearse fears, replay failures. They believe they are venting or being realistic, not realizing that they are commanding reality to echo their words. The law cannot resist conviction. Whatever you dwell upon with feeling becomes your portion. To live unconsciously is to plant weeds unknowingly. To live consciously is to choose your seeds with care. Consider the parable of two women. One, in sickness, told herself daily, I am frail, I am fading, I will not recover. Her body obeyed her command. The other, also sick, told herself, I am strong, I am healing, I am whole. Her body too obeyed her command. Both prayed, though neither knew it. For prayer is not kneeling in a temple. Prayer is assumption clothed in feeling, sustained in inner dialogue. The universe hears every word of the heart and answers faithfully. This is why Scripture across ages has declared the power of the Word. Words are not empty vibrations. They are symbols of assumption. When you repeat them inwardly with conviction, they take root in the subconscious, and the law shapes reality to mirror them. The world is built upon the unseen architecture of language, and the language you use within yourself is the blueprint of your life. Yet many protest. But I have said positive words and seen no change. The reason is this. Words without feeling are like seeds left on stone. They do not take root. It is not the repetition of empty phrases that creates, but the assumption clothed in emotion. To say, I am abundant, while inwardly feeling poor, is to send mixed commands. The law reflects the dominant state, not the surface word. True creation comes when word and feeling unite. There was once a scholar who memorized affirmations by the hundreds. He recited them daily, yet his life remained unchanged. Frustrated, he sought the counsel of a mystic. The mystic said, You speak the words, but you do not feel them. You recite abundance, but dwell in lack. You declare health, but fear sickness. Your words are hollow because they are not married to assumption. The scholar changed his approach. He chose a single phrase, I am whole, and repeated it not mechanically, but with feeling, seeing himself already vibrant. Within months, his health transformed. He learned then that words are not magic spells, but vessels for feeling. When filled with conviction, they shape worlds. The hidden creation law teaches you to speak inwardly as though your desire were already fulfilled. Do not beg, do not plead, do not ask endlessly. Instead, assume the state of the answered prayer. Speak as one who already possesses. Walk as one who already holds. Live as one who already island. The world cannot resist such certainty. But this requires vigilance. The mind is a restless sea filled with waves of doubt, fear, and old habits. To master the law is to still these waves by directing them deliberately. When doubt whispers, you will fail, replace it with, I succeed with ease. When fear murmurs, you are alone, replace it with, I am loved, I am cherished. When lack shouts, you have nothing, replace it with, I am abundant beyond measure. Do not fight the thought, replace it. Do not dwell in the shadow, turn toward the light. Each replacement is a stroke upon the canvas of reality. Over time, the picture changes completely. There was once a woman who longed for peace but lived in constant anxiety. Her inner voice told her daily, "I am unsafe, I am in danger, I am fragile." The law obeyed, and her world echoed chaos. One day, she learned to change her dialogue. She began to whisper within, "I am safe, I am guided, I am at peace." At first, the old thoughts still surged, but she persisted. Each time fear arose, she replaced it with peace. Slowly, her inner world shifted, and as it did, her outer life grew calm. Situations that once triggered fear dissolved, and people who brought chaos faded away. The law had not punished her before, nor rewarded her now. It had only mirrored the conversation she sustained within. So the practice becomes this: guard your inner words as though they were sacred scrolls, for indeed they are. Every phrase is a seed, every feeling a command. Choose wisely, persist faithfully, and you will see the garden of your life bloom in harmony with your assumptions. Tonight, before you close your eyes, speak inwardly as though your desire were already yours. If it is wealth, whisper within, "I live in abundance." Feel it as truth. If it is health, affirm, "I am whole, I am strong." Feel it as reality. If it is love, say, "I am cherished, I am chosen." Let these words be more than sounds. Let them be states. Fall asleep in them, and let the subconscious receive them as law. Remember this: the universe is not deaf. It is listening to you now, not to your outer cries, but to your inner whispers. And it will obey, faithfully, without hesitation. What you say within today, you will walk within tomorrow. The question is not whether the law works, it is whether you will work the law consciously, deliberately, and with unwavering faith. Chapter 13. The hidden creation law is not about forcing reality to obey you. It is about recognizing that reality has always been obeying you. Every moment, the world bends to the shape of your consciousness, and the life you live today is the echo of the states you assumed yesterday. The tragedy is not that the law does not work, but that so many live unaware of how perfectly it has been working all along. They call themselves unlucky, cursed, or forgotten, not realizing that their own assumptions have scripted the play. To awaken is to finally see that you are both author and actor, director and performer, cause and effect. Imagine a mirror so vast that it reflects not only your body, but your innermost thoughts and feelings. This mirror is life itself. You cannot scowl at the reflection without first scowling yourself. You cannot demand a smile from the image while frowning. In the same way, you cannot demand abundance while assuming poverty, nor love while assuming rejection, nor peace while dwelling in fear. The reflection will not lie to you. It is faithful, it is precise, it is perfect. To change the reflection, you must change yourself. There was once a man who lamented his endless failures. He claimed the world was against him, that fate had cursed him. Yet one night, in the stillness, he heard a voice within say, "Look not at the world, but at yourself. You have assumed defeat, and defeat has obeyed you." The man realized that every time he tried something new, he carried the assumption of failure with him. His efforts were poisoned by his own state. From that day, he decided to assume differently. He began to see himself as favored, as successful, as chosen. At first, the outer world resisted, the old reflection lingering. But he persisted, and in time, doors opened, opportunities flowed, and success, once denied, became inevitable. He understood then that fate had never been against him. He had been against himself. This is the essence of the law. You are never fighting the world. You are only fighting your own inner state. Once you shift within, the world must follow. Circumstances are not enemies to overcome, but mirrors to re-script. This is why the mystics declare, change your conception of yourself and you change your world. The change does not begin with money in your hand, health in your body, or love in your arms. It begins with the inner assumption that these are already yours. But how do you persist when appearances scream the opposite? How do you feel wealthy when bills pile high, feel loved when nights are empty, feel healthy when pain throbs? The answer is faith, not blind faith, but creative faith. Faith that the unseen is more real than the seen, for the seen is only shadow, while the unseen is cause. When you walk by faith, you are not pretending. You are stepping into the deeper truth that the outer world must eventually conform to the inner. There was once a woman bedridden with illness. Doctors gave her little hope, and her body betrayed her with weakness. Yet inwardly, she chose a new state. Each night, she imagined walking freely through a garden, feeling the strength in her legs, the sun upon her skin. She rehearsed this vision until it felt natural. Her body still trembled, but her inner self was already whole. In time, her health returned, baffling the physicians. She said only this, "I walked in my garden long before my body followed." This is the sacred paradox. You must feel it before you see it. To the logical mind, this makes no sense. But to the awakened, it is the only sense there is. The seed must be planted before the tree appears. The harvest must be assumed before it is reaped. You cannot wait for proof is the echo, not the source. Most sabotage themselves by oscillating between states. They assume abundance at night, but bow to lack in the morning. They imagine love in dreams, but dwell on loneliness by day. They affirm health once, but complain of sickness constantly. The law reflects both, and so their lives appear chaotic. The mirror is not broken, their gaze is divided. To persist in one state until it becomes dominant is the secret. Once dominant, it will drown out all contradiction, and the world must obey. Consider the story of a young merchant who feared ruin. Each day he worried about failure, and though his business was steady, his fear drew collapse. Another merchant, facing the same market, assumed prosperity. He carried himself as though fortune favored him, treated each day as opportunity, spoke only of gain. In time, the fearful merchant lost his wealth, and the confident one multiplied his. Both lived under the same law. One used it unconsciously for loss, the other consciously for gain. This is why neutrality does not exist. You are always assuming something. Even in silence, even in rest, you are radiating a state, and the law mirrors it. You cannot stop creating. You can only choose to create unconsciously or deliberately. Awareness is power, for once you see that you are always assuming, you can finally choose what to assume. So the practice becomes this. Ask yourself daily, who am I being right now? Not what am I doing, but who am I being? Am I being poor or abundant? Am I being loved or unloved? Am I being whole or broken? Your outer life will answer honestly, for it is the reflection of your inner being. And if you do not like the answer, shift the being, assume anew. Tonight, let us practice deliberately. Choose a desire you have carried for long. Create a simple scene that would imply it is already fulfilled. If it is wealth, imagine handing money freely, without fear. If it is health, imagine someone saying, "You look so alive." If it is love, imagine a voice whispering, "I'm so glad you're here." Keep the scene short, but rich in feeling. Replay it nightly until it becomes your dwelling. Do not force. Allow it to sink naturally into the subconscious. The law will take care of the rest. Remember this: you are never waiting for the world. The world is waiting for you. Waiting for you to choose, to assume, to persist. The door is not locked. You simply have not turned the key. The mirror is not against you. It is only reflecting what you show it. Shift the self, and the world must follow. For the law is faithful, precise, inevitable. Chapter 14. The hidden creation law is most clearly seen when you discover the subtle truth that all things are states of consciousness. Wealth is not money in your pocket. It is a state of consciousness that attracts money to fill it. Love is not the presence of another person. It is a state of consciousness that magnetizes companionship. Health is not merely the absence of disease. It is a state of consciousness that radiates vitality into the body. Every outer circumstance is but the shadow of a state, and every state is born within you. To change states is to change worlds. Imagine standing before a great gallery filled with doorways. Each doorway leads to a different world, one of wealth, one of poverty, one of joy, one of sorrow, one of love, one of loneliness. The world you inhabit at this very moment is the doorway you have stepped through by assumption. You may believe the doorway chose you, but the truth is that you chose it by identifying with it. Step into a new state inwardly, and you step into a new world outwardly. The law does not lock you in any hall. It waits for you to choose. There was once a man who lived in constant complaint. He believed himself unlucky, cursed, abandoned by fortune. His words were bitter, his thoughts heavy, his state dark. And so life faithfully mirrored his assumption. Loss followed him, doors closed, people avoided him. Yet one evening he heard a teaching that stirred him. You are not unlucky. You are simply in the state of unluckiness. Change your state, and life will change. He resisted at first, but desperation softened him. He began to assume differently. He told himself, I am favored, I am chosen, I am fortunate. At first, the words felt hollow, but as he persisted, the feeling grew. Slowly, his world shifted. Opportunities came, friends returned, prosperity arrived. The man realized he had never been cursed. He had only been dwelling in the wrong state. This is the hidden key. States are not fixed identities. They are garments you may wear or discard at will. The poor state, the sick state, the lonely state. These are costumes, not essence. Your true essence is consciousness itself, infinite and free. But by assumption, you clothe yourself in a state, and the law mirrors it. Most wear the same state for years, mistaking it for who they are. But once you learn to change states deliberately, you realize you are not bound. You can move from lack to wealth, from sorrow to joy, from despair to faith. The law will obey whichever garment you wear. Consider the parable of two friends. One identified as a victim, believing the world conspired against him. The other identified as a victor, believing life favored him. Both faced the same storms, yet one drowned while the other sailed through. The difference was not the sea, but the state. One wore defeat, the other wore triumph. And the law, impartial, reflected both faithfully. But how does one shift states? The answer is imagination. By dwelling inwardly in the end of your desire fulfilled, you slip into its state. If you imagine abundance vividly, feeling the relief and joy of wealth, you step into the wealthy state. If you imagine health, feeling vitality coursing through your veins, you step into the healthy state. If you imagine love, feeling cherished and embraced, you step into the loved state. And once in the state, the world rearranges to mirror it. There was once a woman who longed for recognition in her career. She had worked tirelessly, yet remained overlooked. One day, she decided to test the law. Each night, she imagined herself standing on a stage, receiving applause, hearing her name celebrated. She felt the pride, the joy, the fulfillment. She lived nightly in that state until it became real within. Soon after, promotions, invitations, and honors came her way. She had not begged nor struggled harder. She had simply changed her state, and the world obeyed. This is why the law is simple yet profound. It does not ask you to fix the outer world directly. It asks you to shift your inner state. If you remain in poverty inwardly, no amount of effort can sustain wealth outwardly. If you remain in sickness inwardly, treatments may fail. If you remain unloved inwardly, relationships may crumble. But shift the state, and all else follows. The greatest mistake is to identify with the temporary state rather than with consciousness itself. You may say, "I am poor," but in truth, you are only in the poor state. You may say, "I am unloved," but in truth, you are only in the unloved state. Consciousness is free to step out of any state and into another. The moment you realize this, you are liberated. You are no longer bound by circumstance, for circumstance is only shadow. You are bound only by the state you choose to assume. Think of the actor in a play. He may play a beggar one night and a king the next, yet he is neither beggar nor king. He is the actor, free to wear any role. So are you. The roles of poverty, illness, loneliness are not who you are. They are roles you have assumed. Step into a new role within, and the law will project that role upon the screen of life. So let us practice. Tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself, what state am I choosing to wear? Then, choose the state of your desire fulfilled. Create a simple scene that implies this state. If you long for wealth, imagine signing a generous check. If you long for health, imagine running with ease. If you long for love, imagine someone saying, "I'm so glad you're here." Let this scene be your doorway into the new state. Replay it until it feels real. Fall asleep in it, and let the subconscious accept it as fact. Repeat this nightly, and soon you will awaken not in the old world, but in the new. Remember this: the law does not bind you to any one fate. It binds you only to the state you embody. Change the state, and the fate dissolves. Life is not fixed stone, but flowing water, shaping itself to the vessel you provide. The vessel is your assumption. Chapter 15. The hidden creation law reveals its deepest mystery when you recognize that the outer world is not happening to you, but through you. Every event, every encounter, every pattern that repeats is not random punishment or reward. It is the mirror of your own sustained inner state. What you believe about yourself, about life, about others, is returned to you faithfully, as though the universe were a great echo chamber, sending back precisely the vibration you project. To awaken to this truth is to stop blaming the world and to begin recreating yourself within. Most live in forgetfulness, believing they are victims of chance. They curse the storm, resent the economy, despair at rejection. Yet they do not see that the storm outside is born from the unrest within, that the poverty of the pocket is the echo of poverty in assumption, that rejection in relationships reflects the rejection they secretly hold toward themselves. The law does not punish, it reflects. The mirror does not choose, it only shows. And once this is understood, freedom begins. Imagine a man who constantly says within himself, "Nothing ever works out for me." Each failure seems to confirm his belief, and each confirmation deepens the belief, until his life becomes a cycle of disappointment. He blames bad luck, envious rivals, even destiny itself. Yet when he finally turns inward, he realizes that the only common thread in all his failures is his own assumption. He has been rehearsing defeat, and the law has obeyed. Once he chooses a new inner declaration, "Everything works in my favor," and persists in it, his outer life begins to bend. At first, subtly, then dramatically, circumstances align in his favor. What once felt like curse now feels like blessing. The world did not change first, he did. This is the law. Outer reality is a servant, never a master. It does not lead, it follows. It does not command, it obeys. To live in forgetfulness is to hand the pen of authorship to fear, to habit, to memory. To live awakened is to seize the pen again and write deliberately. There was once a woman who had suffered heartbreak after heartbreak. She told herself repeatedly, "I am unworthy of love." Though men entered her life, they left quickly, reflecting her hidden assumption. One day, weary of sorrow, she dared to change her story. She began to affirm within, "I am deeply loved, I am cherished, I am chosen." At first her mind resisted, reminding her of every wound, but she persisted. Slowly her heart softened, and her assumption deepened. Soon after, she met someone who reflected her new state, patient, tender, committed. She realized then that it was never the world withholding love. It was she who had withheld the assumption of being loved. Once she changed the inner script, the outer play changed with it. The hidden creation law requires radical responsibility. It asks you to stop waiting for the world to fix itself and to fix your own inner state instead. The poverty, the illness, the loneliness, these are shadows, not masters. They dissolve when you shift the assumption that sustains them. This does not mean ignoring pain or pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to give them the throne of authority in your imagination. You acknowledge the storm, but you choose the sun. You see the shadow, but you assume the light. Consider the farmer who, after a season of drought, does not curse the soil but plants again, trusting that rain will come. He knows the soil is faithful, even if one season fails. So too is the law faithful, even if one assumption falters. Persist in planting the right seed, and the harvest must come. The law bends most powerfully to the one who refuses to be moved by appearances. When bills pile high, the awakened one still assumes abundance. When sickness lingers, the awakened one still assumes health. When rejection echoes, the awakened one still assumes love. To the world, this looks like madness, but to the awakened, it is mastery. For appearances are the past, while assumption is the present power that shapes tomorrow. There was once a king who lost his kingdom to rebellion. His people fled, his throne was seized, his crown stolen. Many declared him finished. But the king, though stripped outwardly, remained inwardly enthroned. He told himself daily, "I am still king, my throne is mine." He assumed this state so faithfully that, in time, allies returned, enemies weakened, and his kingdom was restored. To his people, it was a miracle. To him, it was the law. For though he lost the crown outwardly, he never surrendered it inwardly. This is the secret. Never surrender your assumption. Outer loss is temporary, but inner assumption is eternal. Hold fast to the vision, and the outer must bend. Release the vision, and the outer will harden into the unwanted. The difference between triumph and tragedy is not circumstance, but persistence of assumption. So, let us practice. Tonight, choose one area where the outer world has long defied you. Perhaps it is wealth, perhaps love, perhaps health. For one moment, release the story of failure. Release the memory of disappointment. Release the habit of doubt. Close your eyes and step into the end as though it were already true. See yourself living in the fulfillment. Feel it as natural. Whisper it inwardly. This is already mine. Do not demand the outer to change instantly. Simply persist in the inner until it feels more real than the old state. Soon, the world will follow. Remember this, the law is not delayed. The moment you assume, creation begins. The delay you perceive is not in the law, but in your persistence. Continue in the new state until it drowns out the old, and the reflection must change. For the law is faithful, unwavering, perfect. You are not a beggar at the gates of destiny. You are the author of destiny. You are not a victim of chance. You are chance itself, clothed in consciousness. You are not waiting for the world to bless you. The world is waiting for you to assume the blessing. Conclusion. You have walked through the chambers of the hidden creation law. You have seen that life is not chaos but reflection, not accident but obedience. Every scene of your life has been authored by the unseen pen of your assumptions. The outer world has never been against you, nor has it favored another above you. It has only mirrored the state you carried within. To the unawakened, this is a terrifying thought, for it strips them of excuses. But to the awakened, it is liberation, for it places the key back into their hands. You are no longer at the mercy of fate. You are fate itself, breathing through imagination, moving through conviction, shaping through certainty. Now you know that wealth is not earned but assumed, love is not hunted but embodied, health is not begged for but accepted as truth within. Every desire you hold is already yours the moment you step into the state of its fulfillment. The law is faithful, the law is impartial, the law is eternal. What you dare to feel is real, you will one day touch with your hands. What you dare to assume, you will one day live. This is not a promise of hope, it is a certainty of law. So, let the old stories fall away. Let the chains of doubt, fear, and limitation dissolve. Stand now as who you truly are, the hidden author of your life, the silent sculptor of destiny, the master of creation. Your world is your mirror. Look into it, not with despair, but with authority. If you see lack, assume abundance. If you see loneliness, assume love. If you see sickness, assume wholeness. The reflection cannot resist the face you show it. Change yourself within, and the world must follow. This is your awakening. This is your inheritance. This is the law that was hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to claim it. Walk forward now, not as a seeker, but as a creator. Step boldly into the states you desire. Persist in them until they become natural. And soon, the life you once only dreamed will rise before you as fact. The law is simple. The law is faithful. The law is yours. If this journey has awakened something within you, let your heart respond. Like this video so that its light reaches others. Leave a comment sharing the vision you are now assuming, and let your words become a declaration to the universe. And if you wish to walk further into these sacred teachings, subscribe so that we may continue this journey together. This is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter of creation. The hidden creation law is now in your hands. What will you create next?